the system is not the final word on a human life and how it is built, how it grows, how it lives. And examining and re-examining and saying, wait a second, what if the system is wrong, is that's an important thing for us to stop and look at. And that's what we had to do. We had to stop and look at it and say, okay, if the system is wrong, we see what it's doing already to our kid in first grade, and we didn't like it. Welcome to our back porch. We are two authors and artists happily married for over 20 years, parenting two boys and sharing glimpses of our lives with you. Lean in and listen to our unedited conversations as we share on art, parenting, politics, culture, and how our Christian faith colors it all. I'm Dale Fincher with my wife, Jonalyn Fincher.
Hello.
And this is our back porch conversation. Today's conversation is about home education. We're in the full swing of back to school marketing in all the stores. People are talking about starting the school year, kids are heading off to college, young adults are heading off to college. And here we are at home, not caught in the bustle of any of that, because the way we educate our children is different than the typical seasonal rotation of kids through whether it be public or private education in America.
That's right. We do things a little differently.
How long have we been home educating now?
Let's see, our oldest was just finished with kindergarten. So that would be his first grade year we started, and he's in 10th grade. So it's been 10 years. Has it really been?
10, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th.
Oh, 9,
I'm
because that's
8.
right. We started when he was in 2nd grade. Yeah.
We're
So
going
9
into
years.
our 9th year?
Still 9 years. That's impressive. I'm
Super impressive.
I'm proud of us. You know, it's crazy because neither one of us come from home educating families. We did not have that model in my friends and culture. I think I only knew one person who was homeschooled. Well, my best friend was homeschooled growing up, but only for like 1 or 2 years. Most of my friends were from my Christian school or my private school or my public school that I went to.
But we're talking 30 to 40 years ago. I mean, it was much more uncommon
Yeah, it was.
back in the day when we were going through.
I think it's significant when a family changes their culture and moves away from formal education into home education, because it's well, one of the things we want to talk about is it's signing up to constantly ask yourself, am I doing enough? Are my kids getting what they deserve? Have they learned the right stuff? Can they cut it in the real world? You're always asking that.
Yeah, and I think if whoever's listening to this is, we're sitting with us right here, I imagine one of the big questions they'd have is whether or not they're even cut out for it. Could they do it? Is it something they could do?
That's one of the first responses I get from people. I could never do that.
Yeah.
When they find out I home educate.
That's right, and I feel like there's some legitimate, what's the word I'm looking for?
Hindrances or hurdles?
Sure, legitimate limitations. And one of those legitimate limitations is if your lifestyle or where you live is so expensive that both mom and dad have to work full-time, not even part-time, but full-time. And I think that is a legitimate limitation that makes it very difficult to home educate. And I mean, I'll admit that right away.
I think, though, the problem with you saying that I think of right away is that the assumption that people who home educate, it just worked out for them. When in the reality, every single family I know who home educates, they are making pretty big sacrifices to give up that second income. They are not taking trips. They don't have really fancy cars. Sometimes they don't have more than one car. Often they don't have new clothes. They're not involved in the expensive sports. They just have given up things to make it work. And I get so like twitchy when people make it sound as if money should keep them from doing anything, and that's because of the way I was raised that money should never be a legitimate excuse for why you can't do something. I would say the limitations I think of are people who are so insecure about their own intelligence that they can't see themselves teaching their children anything. That's what I think most people mean.
You think so?
Yes, they mean I'm not patient enough. They'll even say that. Women will say to me, I am not patient enough to teach my kids. They would drive me crazy. I would kill them. It would be bad for everybody.
Home education, increasing murders since 1968. No, I think I like what you raised about that, because I do think these limitations that happen, like people, living up to the very limit of their means. I think that a lot of people think that there's a particular goal for moving up in your career and socking away money and achieving the next level is, I want to get that dream house by the time I'm this age. And I want to drive a comfortable, modern, new car. And those are just status symbols, but they're like, I think, unquestioned dreams in the back of many people's minds. Mm-hmm. So that when they are presented with something like this, it's the idea of, oh, I could home educate, but look what I have to give up. And that's what you're sharing. Well, look what I have to give up. What I like about what you're sharing is that that's on the very personal level of, this is what comes up from people to say, I couldn't do it. But the reality is they could if they restructured some things. What I hear from people, especially when I'm on social media, is this idea of education freedom and you choosing what you want to do. People will immediately, granted, a lot of it is the codependent people, but they will immediately come in and say, but people can't do that. They need a 2-income family. And they will almost come to the rescue of some sort of mysterious person. We're catching whiffs of something next door. I think our neighbors might be enjoying some of the leaf. So anyway, where was I going with that? It doesn't matter. That people will advocate, especially on the political level, they'll advocate and say, this home education thing just doesn't work because people need to be 2-income families. And what are the kids going to do? You heard it about COVID. In fact, I just read it yesterday. Somebody saying about what were the effects and damages of COVID for kids in education. And one of them was kids had to be at home, but the parents both had to work. And so it was a tragic thing for them, and they had no adult supervision in their lives and no mentors during that year of working from home.
Well, I have to say I do agree that the most legitimate reason to not home educate is if you have an abusive home, where you are a type of parent that you literally cannot pay attention to your children. You don't know how to listen to them. You can't figure out what they're struggling with. You have a combative, abusive, emotional, financial, sexual, whatever, a relationship with your child. It's much better to put that child into school because they're getting a relief from that toxic environment.
Do you think people who have that kind of dysfunction at home are aware of how deeply it goes and how much damage it's causing their kids?
Oh, no, but I'm grateful for formal education for those situations because it gives the child an escape route.
Yeah, I'm thankful for options too, yeah.
But I think the thing that I hear the most, and the reason I wanted to share our experience together during this conversation is you and I both had doubts that we could do it. And I think that says a lot about how education is marketed, as if it's something only the experts can do well.
Yeah,
it's two people
deceptive.
like you and I who are gifted in teaching, who I actually was a teacher teaching junior high. You have taught teens and youth.
Oh, yeah.
You are a better teacher than I've ever experienced in terms of telling the stories of the Bible. And you're fantastic in how you adapt to our children's needs when it comes to the subjects. You focus on grammar and math. And I think it says a lot about the brainwashing that's happened to adults to think that they are unqualified or incapable of educating their own children. Mm-hmm. That's a smear campaign on the intelligence of parents.
Well, yeah, and you understand why it's a smear campaign. They're not actually considering the intelligence of parents at all. they just need to keep the public education system and the money train and the people they have and the Tower of Babel they've created with the education system intact.
How is it a Tower of Babel to your mind?
In my mind, it is, especially in the public sphere, it is run by teachers' unions, and it goes all the way up to a federal level. So meaning like it's a centralized network of thousands and thousands and thousands of educators and administrators all over the country that are all falling lockstep into line with what the union decides needs to be taught, how it needs to be taught, and they become allies of each other. And the damning thing of all that is that they are unified in an effort to educate, I should say, to teach, because education implies that you're actually learning knowledge, but they are teaching their particular perspective or fantasy on what the real world is like and what it means to be a proper citizen and how to contribute with the eternal worth that every person is and how they contribute with their special gifts in society. And so as soon as you bring in first private education, where it's like, oh no, you're taking people away from public, but it's like, oh, okay, but as long as the private money, tax money still came in, different states run it differently. In New Hampshire, where we are, the public school gets money, your tax money, whether your kid goes to the school or not. So you could have a perfectly empty seat there and the school is still getting money. The private school is a little bit of a threat, but I think home education, especially when tax money starts being withdrawn from the public schools and given and follows the students for the education they need, that's when all the claws come out and parents are attacked. And we've seen it so much. Parents are not experts, Look at how many credentials a teacher needs to have. They go through all the schooling and they become, absolute professionals. They get certified and they get board certified and all these layer upon layer upon layer of credentialing, which doesn't mean a whole heck of a lot anymore, but they will use that as a smokescreen to say, well, parents don't have that, therefore teachers know what's best, not only for subjects, but know what's best for kids more than parents do.
Yeah, I think that's why when you and I decided to educate Finn, we were nervous that we could even do it, even though he was only in second grade.
He was just leaving first grade, and we were like,
can we do this? And we said we'll just do it for the summer to start out. And we will just do it after that for 1 year at a time. And I think I made the same mistake that a lot of first-time home educators do, and that is I just tried to do school at home. I bought a desk from a school. I think that's so funny now looking back on that. I had a school room. Yep. I had hours and times he had his little butt in his seat and working on his copywork and his spelling and his writing and his math.
Well, because all the things in the state level, when you say what are the requirements for homeschooling, they say this many hours in classroom, which has to match exactly what's going on in.
That was Colorado standards. Each state is different. So I think what we have learned, though, and that's really what I wanted to turn to, is there are certain things you're always signing up for as a home educator, and there are certain things you do not have to accept responsibility for that people would like you to, but you don't have to. So in other words, there are some things you get no matter what, and there's some things you can let go of. But if you take on everything society, reality, God puts on your shoulders, it's too heavy to be a home educator. No one could do it. Mm-hmm. So when I'm going to speak personally, for me, I've had to give up the excitement and the legitimacy I felt knowing that my child was smart by the world's standards of judgment, and allow his giftings to guide me in how to teach him, which means that we have to be just as creative in teaching him as we are in helping him to find his place in this world.
That's right.
And what's interesting is that doesn't mean I have more anxiety than my friends who are completely lockstep in the system. I met up with some of my girlfriends from the University of Virginia who are now raising their children, and the anxiety, even with their children in lower elementary grades, like third grade and kindergarten, the anxiety they have that their kids aren't doing enough math, won't get into a good college, won't get the right network, won't get the good job, is so prevalent and scary. It's panic attack level for some of these friends.
Yeah.
Because for them, it's like they are constantly pushing their children to rush a sorority. The sorority is called a private school. The sorority is called that Ivy League college. And it's always an anxiety. Are you good enough to get in?
And the word I would use is they're captured to game the system. The system is, this is how we do it. The system is, this is what you need to get to the next level. The system says these are all the credentials you need in order to arrive there. And I think for a home educator, one of the things you have to do is you have to, quite frankly, have courage and start growing a backbone to say, the system is not the final word on a human life and how it is built, how it grows, how it lives. And examining and re-examining and saying, wait a second, what if the system is wrong? That's an important thing for us to stop and look at. And that's what we had to do. We had to stop and look at it and say, okay, if the system is wrong, we see what it's doing already to our kid in first grade, and we didn't like it. We saw some of the attitudes, some of the beliefs he would bring home and share. And it's not like, oh, we learned this at school today, and you have 10 minutes to say, well, that's not right because of this. It's like, it's not like that. It's kind of like if you throw your kid in a pool and they see a leaf floating in it, and they're like, oh, I saw a leaf in the pool going near the filter, and you like pull the leaf out. You're like, yeah, that's fine. But the leaf is the one thing you addressed, but we didn't address is how wet he is. And we don't realize that when they are going into any place, they are immersing in a worldview, jumping into a pool, and they're getting fully saturated in the beliefs and the values and structure of that place and being shaped by it. And the only things you know to help correct or talk about are things that he brings up. It might be paperwork he brings home, might be a book he talks about, might be a story that was told in the classroom, and you're getting like the leaf in the pool and missing, 1,000 gallons of water that came with it.
No, it's really important because it's not simply beliefs. It is a new way of seeing the whole world and themselves.
And home education helps you do that because now they're immersed in your pool.
Yes, exactly.
All right, we quickly changed locations because, well, mosquitoes on the back porch. Now we're inside, in a barn, in fact. And let's continue this conversation. So, yeah, we want our kids spending their time immersed in our pool and getting and learning to swim in a deeper, richer water.
The scary thing about that is you have to develop a family culture that is
deeper and richer.
Yes. And that's where the biggest criticism of homeschool families and what a lot of people, especially the older generation, runs to is your children will not be socialized. They will be awkward and weird, and they won't know how to make it in the real world. And
there's no doubt home educators in general are looked down upon by people who are committed to the public school system. I feel that a lot.
Yeah,
but
I do too.
The older generation whose kids have all gone on, I find that they give us a lot of respect.
They
a lot of
give
props.
us respect after they spend time with our children. So if they'll have us over for a barbecue, they'll be amazed that our children can have a conversation and engage with them as almost as, I don't want to say peers in the sense that my children don't have respect for them.
A mature conversation.
Yes, they're not afraid to share their thoughts and feelings with adults. And a lot of that has to do with us protecting our children's souls so that they know when an adult is talking to them, they're going to be cared for and listened to, not made fun of or sermonized. And our children are not, they're not seduced into youth culture yet, God willing, never will be, into thinking that when they're with their peers, they're cooler than anyone else. And that actually does make our children socially different. And you could say odd or weird, because our children do not have a peer pressure weakness, which means when they're hanging out with other peers, they don't get giddy or girl crazy or machismo and like acting like they're not themselves. They don't go into a different mode when they're hanging out with their friends. They're the same people.
Mm-hmm. And they are, quite frankly, perplexed when they're around kids who do behave that way. And like, oh, we're around our friends. Let's play secret. Let's do little fun, let's push the boundaries kind of things. And our boys are like, why are you doing that? Why can't we just hang out and have fun?
Yeah.
Why do you have to act exclusive? Why do you have to make fun of people? Why do you have to hide from the adults?
Yeah, it's true. Our boys see us as trustworthy, not just confidants, but like trustworthy guides for knowledge and for life. We
have built the trust. You're right.
Yeah, so if something weird happens with a friend, they will talk and process that with us. But that was built up, and it took several years to deprogram Finn from the public school system, which...
He was only in it for 2 years, and we felt like it took at least 2 years of deprogramming.
It was very formative years to give your kids over for 7 hours a day.
At ages 5 to 6
It's
to 7.
very, very formative. He was also in public preschool, which I know did damage to him. He still has very clear memories of how I see their abusive and punitive system for kids who just didn't fall in line the way they wanted.
I'm so angry about that. Still.
Yeah, I have the tools now to see the world system in these places so much better than I did as a young mom. And my hunger for popularity and to be accepted was so huge, even 15 years ago. And God's still working with me on that. But I think as a homeschooler, if you don't get some of your own growth under... if you're not aware that you must be growing to be a home educator, then your children will just mimic the same problems you have. And that's important to say, because just because you're homeschooling your kids doesn't mean your kids will not be susceptible to peer pressure. I see a lot of the homeschool kids develop that like teen, we're cooler than the adults group think. I see it at the church service we attend. I see it.
It's like the sassiness of Disney sitcoms.
Yes, because you can be homeschooling, but if they're absorbing the culture through music and movies all the time without a guide, it's not that we're saying our kids can't listen to music or watch movies, but if they don't have a guide to help them navigate it, they pick up, because they're smart, what is popular or more powerful, or will what give you acceptance or acceptability in our culture.
That's right, and what's normalized.
Yes.
So just like that's just a normal way to be.
Yes, exactly.
Normal way to be a kid, so that's just what we're going to do. And it was funny because I heard the laugh track. They were laughing in the show, so this joke must be really funny, or being sassy must be really funny.
This is what like cooler kids do, and so I want to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you have to be...
I want to say that socialization component is very...
You had a great metaphor about vitamin C with that you were talking about. I'd love if you feel free to share that.
Yeah, socialization, I mean, it's such a big fancy word for just like, can you learn to carry on conversations and be friends with people? And can you navigate relationships? Can you be social? So, but throwing your kid in my opinion, throwing your kid into this thing where they don't see their parents for 6 hours a day, and they have to do that for 13 years. If that's what socialization is, it's to me looking at what kids really need to do to accomplish this goal that socialization claims to accomplish. It's like drinking like orange soda, and on the label on it, it said, contains vitamin C. To me, that's what it's like sending your kids off to public school. You're like, well, where are they going to get their vitamin C if you don't give them the orange soda that look on the label says contains vitamin C? Where are you going to get it? And I think when people ask that, they're being extremely uncreative and do not understand how human beings grow up in the world and have throughout world history, that all of a sudden you had to have the Industrial Revolution and have a particular school system in order for kids to suddenly know how to have friends. That's a bizarre assumption to have. But I would rather teach kids how to peel an orange and just eat the orange, because that thing is loaded with vitamin C. And so, when you're thinking about how do I help my kids have good relationships, how do I help them spot bullies before they become bullies so they can avoid those kinds of people? How do I help them break the ice with small talk when they're trying to enter into new groups and not do it in an awkward way? And then what does loyalty and friendship mean? What does consistency and taking the initiative to reach out, as well as wait for someone to reciprocate that back to you after you've taken the initiative, so that there's the play and the give and take of friendship.
Those are great examples. Those are such key examples of what we work with our boys regularly on.
Regularly. I never took a class on that in school, and it wasn't taught in school, and I was bad at it because nobody taught it to me.
Well, if you're bad at it,
at home,
you're not going to get it through hanging out with your peers in a social setting. It's so funny. You just learn to shut up. That's what you learn.
So just like at home, you're exactly right. And I learned, and I did not know how to empower my shyness to overcome it. So it's okay to be a shy person, but here are some tools so you can navigate and get some things that you want and things that you need, and still be okay being a shy, introverted type of kid, But I was saying, when you're saying, the socialization, and with the parent, if the parent doesn't want to grow and learn and be that kind of person, of course their kid's not going to grow and learn and be that kind of person. But you're going to send them off to quite possibly a school where they're not growing and learning, becoming that kind of person either. So it's like, who do you want them to be emulating? Because they're copycats, and they're supposed to be copycats. When you learn to live in the world, or you're learning anything new, you always copy the master, the tradesman, whatever the craftsman.
That's
you
what
copy,
it means to be an apprentice.
That's right. You copy until you can start mastering the copy.
So who do you want your kids copying? And there are some parents who I'm really glad that they don't have their kids around them all day, because maybe they'll copy someone better. It makes sense. But what breaks my heart is some of the best people have been convinced that they are not good enough for their children to copy them. And so they give up on that privilege, and they assign someone else for their kids to copy.
That's right. And it's easy because they pay the taxes, and the system says, look, here it is. All you got to do is drop them off.
You're rewarded for it.
And not only will we give them a credential and some grades and stuff so that you can feel better about yourself and letting your kid be set up for a future success, but you get free daycare all day long. So you can go to work, and if you don't work, you can sit at home or whatever it is you need to do so that you don't have to be a parent for a while. I think that the system is built in a way to capture the children. They have greased the rails. Mm-hmm. They have reduced the friction. We talk about, in sales, they talk about reducing the friction, like on a website, in order to buy something. And if you have to click here and then click there and then click over here and then click there, and then you have to input all of this information, during that journey, you might be like, you know what, maybe this is too much trouble. I don't think I want those, cool pair of retro sunglasses. I'm good. I'll find them somewhere else. I'm sure it's fine. And then moving on. You got distracted or whatever. But if you reduce the friction where it's like sunglasses,
click and
buy now. On Amazon, they figured out how to reduce that friction. It's easy. There are many programs, many things set up that reduces the friction for our kids to be removed from our parenting. Whether it be the television, or the schooling, or the sports clubs, or whatever it is. You have to pause and ask yourself, is this good for our family? Is it good for my kid? Does it help us accomplish the goals that we have? Does it help my kid become a good person? And a good person knows their own limits. A good person does not work themselves to the bone. They don't fill up every minute of their schedule with busyness so they stay out of trouble.
That's a sad thing about the culture, is there's an assumption that children will be mischievous and naughty if you don't fill up every moment of their day.
The idle hands are the devil's workshop is the old saying, and
that's not from the Bible, by the way. There's no verse in the Bible at all that says that. But
no, but it's a proverb. I think it's a proverb that makes sense, that boredom will allow who you truly are to bubble out.
Yes, but that's not what the proverb says.
Idle hands is the devil's workshop. Now, I know, I think what it's implying is that most people bubble out vices and mischief when they aren't busy. And that's because the poor child has not been built with virtue and goodness and a model and goals and tasting what a satisfied life can start to look like. So I agree. Proverbs are not promises and not guarantees.
That's a very charitable read on Ben Franklin or whoever said that.
Thank you.
So we've shared a couple of things that are sort of the downsides or the criticisms of home education. The anxiety you're going to have. Are you doing enough? The critique of socialization. the judgment of others. And there's one we haven't mentioned before we move into the benefits of for why our family chose home education, which I definitely want to get to.
Yeah.
And this last one that we talked about earlier was there's a competition among home educators. And I know that's one you felt very strongly about. Do you want to mention anything about that?
I want to know what you mean.
Well, we've talked about it before.
I do sense there's a competition because there's like these 4 major different views on how to home educate, and then no matter what view you're in,
there's like
most of them feel like that is the superior view, and they want to sell you on it and be like, oh, but we do this.
Join us and our co-op because we're going to do Charlotte Mason, or we're going to do unschooling,
or we're going to do classical.
Yes.
Classical, that's the way. You
Yes.
want your kid to be like one of the Greeks.
So I have a theory about this I'd like to share for those of you who are home educating or thinking about it, and that is we try to give our children the education we felt like we lacked, or a better stab at getting knowledge than we had. And so a lot of the times there's a certain profile that's drawn to these different types of education models based on their insecurities. So for
we've
example,
tried them all.
Yes, Dale and I have.
And we've intermixed them all, even in the way we do things.
Right, we have. And our, maybe I should just share this now, our philosophy of home education is God gave you in your family a certain culture that you and your spouse create, and your children are the fruit of that culture, and they will have certain traits that are usually generationally showing up in your family. So for our family, it's very clear that we have artistic giftings multi-generationally in our family. Writing, speaking, painting, sculpting, performing. These are in Dale and I, and they are in our children. So we believe our home education needs to orbit those gifts rather than shuffle them off into a corner as part of someone else's curriculum for us. That means that there are going to be some places our kids are not as amazing or even that strong simply because they're not as gifted. So trying to train up their strengths so that they can really shine in those. So for example, I make it a priority to teach my boys art history, and I have since they were really young in elementary school, so they understand sort of the sweep of what artists have done in the past, because I think artists' work is going to be part of their future. That's always a gamble. It's always a gamble in how you educate kids.
True, but when you do study art and you start studying the liberal arts, they're not just learning the craft of art, but they're learning a lot of the higher ideas of how to be a free person and how to be a human person.
They're studying the best every age could come up with in illustrating the freest, best life.
Yeah.
And even though they don't all come up with the same answers, they're getting a survey of history through art.
They're being inspired.
Yeah, they are being inspired, definitely. But, to do that means, because we're limited with time, I can't actually go over other areas that maybe the state thinks is, or my friends who are doing classical education think are really important. And so what that means is when my mom friends or my dad friends start talking about what they're doing and how great it is, I have to learn to listen and to care about what they're doing without assuming their passion for their method is a good fit for my family. And because anxiety is so high with home education, you really have to work on this regularly, because your anxiety about your kids' education will end up leaking out by buying another set of curriculum to once again try and force your kids into an idea of someone else's that's best for them, rather than trusting your spouse and God and working together to educate your children for their good.
That's good.
That's hard. It's hard work to do.
It is.
And it's lonely sometimes because you may not have a lot of friends who get it. God has always provided at least one friend for me who sees eye to eye in trying to really study our kids and give them that freedom. And those have become the best lifelong home educating friends that we've had.
Yeah.
But most home educators, the anxiety gets the better of them. And they usually need to follow lockstep into one curriculum. And that's okay too. That's where they're at.
And there's a lot of resources on different curriculums to get. And some people just do that. They just plop down and go through curriculum day after day from subject to subject.
And that can be very good if you have rule-following family who's very faithful and love to follow a tribe that's like one of your strengths in your family. Dale and I aren't like that, so it's not a good fit for us.
Well, we'll do it like, for example,
We do it for math,
we
don't
do
we?
reading, writing, arithmetic. If we were to take a step back and be like, okay, do you just teach them how to do, plays and how to draw pictures? They're like, no. Literacy, we have a high value of literacy, high value of the ability to communicate.
Yeah, we do.
And a high value in understanding mathematics and how to, do formulas. And because that starts to deal with logic and critical thinking and reasoning. And of course, there's history is in there, and I teach the Bible every day and developing the Living Room Bible. And so we are doing like the staples, but all of it has a particular color and a slant to it. Around what you were talking about, around what our giftings are, what we see their giftings are, but we also, with each one of our kids, we see things they're good at and what they're not as good at.
Yes.
For example, for one of them, we don't worry about rushing through math and getting all the lessons done within that quick 9-month period. Some days you might do 2 or 3 lessons. There might be a week that you don't do any lessons, because my son is not super gifted in math. He's good enough. And then you like look and see what the local high school is doing or middle school is doing for math. And you're like, oh, only like a certain percentage of kids actually go into those higher levels of math, move into that trigonometry and that calculus. I remember when I went off to college, I had to take some electives, so I took beginning algebra because I knew it would be so easy for me. And there I was, my freshman year, I'm like, good, I'm gonna get like 2 or 3 credits for this, and it's like easy, so I could focus on my other classes. So I'm taking a stupid general elective, and I'm in that class, and nobody understands beginning algebra. And I'm like, these are all 19-year-olds. How did they not do this in school? Well, I went all the way up through calculus in high school. So that was like child's play to me. But what you realize is that most people in life don't need to have advanced mathematics. There's no reason for it. So if your kid's not good in math, how sad if we're like pushing, like get higher grades, you gotta do better, we gotta get you through geometry, we gotta get you up to trig, maybe you'll get into one of the AP classes. They're like, whoa, dial back the moxie. It's like, this is way too much. So they're not strong at math, fine. Dial it back, go slower so they understand well what they are learning. But in those areas that they're good at, then spend more time on those other subjects.
And I can hear people listening to us saying, well, why did they need that? They're going to need that as a prereq for going into any of the fields they're interested. I want my son to be a scientist. I want him to be an engineer.
That's the
she
future
wants to be
question.
A nurse.
Yeah.
And so this is what I think we're learning as our children are getting closer to the college age is, are you invested in college because your child needs this? Or are you invested because for you it's a high score on your report card as a home educator? I know moms and dads who've home educated their kids. They know how to work the system. They know how to write the transcripts as a home educator to get their kids a chance at the big name schools. I went to a big name school, and I'll tell you, quite frankly, it was not worth the money or the time. The school was captured even way back in the late 90s. It's much worse now. I would encourage many people to think carefully if college is even necessary. With the rise of AI and all the new ways to learn and do things, I believe we're in a cusp of a revolution in how education is even going to happen in the future. Fields of work are going to change so much. We need creative parents and children to find ways to be salt and light in these new fields. And not assume that college is a necessary hurdle to get everything you want or need in a career. Those are 4 precious, formative years in our kids' lives. And I'm doing my best to prepare my sons to go to college should they want to. But we are regularly talking about how the reality of college is not a prerequisite for many things they would want to do. It breaks my heart that so many gifted, creative people are forced into these little square holes when they're circular pegs simply because a parent assumed only the hard sciences, only finance, only these certain areas will earn you a position that can make enough money to support you or your family. Take a moment, I think, and look at your family's strengths, what worked and what didn't, and look at your children's giftings and grow them in those areas rather than assuming that college is the best fit. I think it's a courageous thing to do, and it means you will be judged. And I would love it if one of my kids could get into a big name college simply because of the pats on the back. And that says a lot about me, that I still love the praise of humans more than I actually want to just sit in the reality of who God has given me as my children's souls and what they actually need.
Yeah. No, it's really good. College used to mean when you walked out, you knew something. Now it's just about getting a credential, not about having knowledge. And our emphasis in teaching our kids is that they have knowledge. And that's very important. And so many kids will go off to college, and then afterwards they're like, hey, they got the job, they're doing whatever. They get married, they get divorced, they have kids out of not being married, and you just see this almost like this long string of their life just shedding, like a car driving down the road and shedding its panels and getting flat tires. And if you follow in the wake of it, it's just this big mess of things. Oh, look at that, there's a muffler. What is it? It must be a car way ahead of us that's falling apart. And I see a lot of people living that way. I see a lot of parents are like, yay, we got our kids off to college. This is great. Yay, our kid graduated from college. He got a job at such and such. And you're like, yeah, it's great. High fives to everybody. Barbecues, cigars, toast of champagne. You did it. And then as a parent, you're like, I did it. I succeeded. I did my part. And I've watched it. They get married and then they get divorced. And the kids are in shambles. Their lives are so uncertain and unstable, and they want to visit with grandma and grandpa, and that's great, but now there's the visitation of the mom and the dad, and the kids are stuffed into a school that's not really doesn't fit them well, and then it's the generational dysfunction starts to spiral. And all that just breaks my heart, because we're getting all these messages saying you have to jump through this hoop, this hoop, this hoop, and this hoop in order to fit into society. And I'm like, I don't want to fit into society. I want to fit into reality. And if my society is living in the matrix, if my society is living a fantasy, I don't want that. I don't want it for my kids. The most precious things, the most important thing I bring to the whole world are my kids. God gave me these powers. I don't know why he gave us these powers, but they are phenomenal powers to procreate. I have one shot. And so I want to drop what I'm doing and be less successful during these years in whatever financial things I'm working on, so that these kids can get what they need. I want when I launch them to say I did everything that I could for them to have robust souls, to understand what is right and wrong, understand what is good and evil, wisdom, relationships, and they know that their parents have their back the whole way, and that understood them the whole way. I know how you're wired. I know what you're going through. I know what you have learned. I know what you can do. You've got this. It's like the baseball coach saying, we've gone through practice. We've done this. We've done this week after week after week. You got this. I've seen you do it.
We're coaches in so many ways.
You are. And home education allows you to be an actual coach rather than just somebody that's cheering them on the sideline.
Or supporting the heavies at the school. I think that's why you've done Living Room Bible with them. That's why you've worked with them through the scriptures. That's their best history. That's their best virtue and character class. That's their best theology, is you've taken the time to teach them with your training and giftings. And that's something you've made accessible to other families, is they can listen in on you teaching the Bible to our boys. I love that. I love that you paused in your career to create this for them. And I see that it was like a tidal wave in their life in terms of a new culture for them. They weren't going to get their primary education about God from a church service. They were going to get it from you and me.
That's right. And we were going to live it. When we're not teaching the Bible stories, we're going to live out what we learn.
That's right. That alone is such a huge benefit of why we home educate.
If somebody wants to start doing this, I don't want to interrupt a thought you have.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
If somebody wants to start if you're curious to say, could I do this? I mean, the school year is upon us, and maybe you would be rushing it to start this year. Maybe something you want to start for next year. But you could do it now. Is what could you do right now to start the journey, or at least start considering it? And I'd say, for me, I say, God help me. Okay, here we go. Now you and God are working on this together. And then I would start researching, what are the requirements in my state in order to do this?
HSLDA is an organization that was a great place to start. HSLDA, we can put that in the show notes.
And you can do a lot of web searches for homeschooling organizations in your state, because people want to help you to get on your feet and be able to succeed at this. And there's different ways to do it. So that's the first thing. And once you do it, you'll even find out, oh, these are the different requirements of what I have. Oh, I think I could pull this off. I just thought I was kind of shooting in the dark, but no, this is what I need. And then based on that, start researching, okay, I know I have to have, teaching them some English, so what would that look like? And then a resource we found helpful was Kathy Duffy's website. Just type in Kathy Duffy, and she has...
Kathy with a C. She reviews homeschool curriculum for her full-time job. So she will match you up based on your children's learning strengths to curriculum. You can find more curriculum than you would ever even want. There's so much out there.
You'll be blown away.
So much out there. You can have them do it all online. You can have them have mentors for every single subject.
You could find a co-op that's nearby that you could, they can go, a couple days a week to learn some stuff. There's just so many things where you have to actually say, I want to start looking into this. And those are a couple of ways to get the ball rolling and start thinking through, what would this take? Maybe for some, you have to literally sell your house and move to a less refined neighborhood.
And speaking as someone who's moved 4 times in the last 5 years, I get it.
It's hard.
I get how hard it is to uproot and
sometimes
move.
You want to be in a nicer neighborhood because it makes you feel better. But sometimes it's okay to live in a less nice neighborhood, and one of you quit your jobs so you can do this. And it's okay.
Yes.
And it's okay to sell one of your cars and try to do this. It's
still
okay.
Your shepherd, and he will guide you. And it's always important to take a step back and say, when I'm 85, when I look back, what will I have wanted to give my kids? Maybe for some of you, your spouse really wants them in full-time, regular public or private education. And if so, you just are concerned that they understand the Bible better. If so, Dale's work in Living Room Bible is a wonderful way to give them that big picture, walking through the Bible as a story experience. And I'm happy to say that's accessible now. You can start in Genesis now. It's so wonderful. We'll put that in the show notes too. But the benefits for us of home education has meant in one simple sentence that we know our children. And this is a taste of heaven. We will know in full, and we will be known. Why wouldn't you want that? I think knowing people is very risky. It's vulnerable. It takes courage. It's like an earthquake running through your life. I've had to give up many of my ambitious dreams. But I know Finn and Ollie, and I know you so much better because of it.
And that's enough.
It's more than enough. And God has brought people to mentor our children once they outgrow us. I was thinking of how God brought us a harp teacher and a piano teacher. God's brought people to mentor Finn in three-dimensional design.
Woodworkers and chess players and people that cross our paths because our family crosses paths with their family and with neighbors and people we meet. And that's been awesome. God supplements all over the place. And most of the time you don't even plan it. But once you see the opportunity, then you plan it.
I'm wondering if we want to share just a little bit about the difficulty for us lately has been realizing our children are doing amazing things, but they're not getting recognition. They don't have assemblies where they're given trophies, and they don't have track meets where they're getting medals. That's been a difficult spot for our boys.
They see people win awards, and they are sad that either they didn't win or they didn't get an opportunity to win. And I think what they don't realize is there's a lot of kids out there who actually get involved in sports and do a lot of things, and their team never wins and they never win a trophy, even if they had the opportunity to win. So it's not a guarantee. They're like, Dad, if only I played baseball, I'd have a trophy. You'd be like, no, you got to be like the winning team to do that kind of stuff. But I think what I have come to understand, and this is like anathema among so many people, I've come to understand something of the participation trophy, I will tell you that. Mm-hmm. And the participation trophy is the one where, we criticize it as celebrating mediocrity. It's like, oh, great, you tried. Here, you get a trophy too. And we all know, and we should know, a participation trophy doesn't mean first place. But it did mean that you showed up. And that's worth celebrating. I think of the guy who is unseen. He's not the one who ran for, city council. He's not the one who's the big shot attorney. He's not the one who's even the pastor or works on the staff of a church and people just see them all the time as a leader. He's just an excavator. Just goes around and he digs holes. He moves things around. And he doesn't get a lot of praise for it. And he doesn't win the excavator competitions. He doesn't even go. He thinks they're a waste of time. And you have to go so far, and you got to pull all your equipment all the way out there. I knew a guy. We had an excavator once that went to those competitions, but most of them don't. But what do they get? They get a participation. If they do their job according to the agreement with the person who hired them, they get a participation trophy, and it's called a paycheck. It's called getting paid for a job well done, and that is. I'm finding it so much more important with my own kids to be like, you don't have to be first. You have to understand that the most important value in the Bible is faithfulness, which means you have to tell the truth and you have to show up. You have to be committed. Faithfulness is all those wonderful things are in it. If you show up and you are committed and you are faithful to God, faithful to people, faithful to the contracts, the agreements, promises you make, you will get rewarded. You will be so overloaded with trophies, you will think that they're just a normal, common, everyday thing, because you will get paid. People will shake your hand. People will say thank you. People will invite you back. People will rehire you for things. People will spread the word through word of mouth. Be that kind of person. That's way better than winning the most improved award in 10th grade basketball in your high school of 50 people, which is a trophy that I have, a hat on my shelf. And I'm like, okay, that's great. But in the scheme of life, these things are so much better. And my boys are slowly coming in. One of them does a lemonade stand, and he's discovering nobody gave him an award for having the best lemonade in town. No. But he's got a couple $100 in his little bank. From putting the effort in, and that is a reward, and that's his trophy.
I was going to actually use that as an example because, I'm glad you brought it up. Today, it was a slower day, and it was very hot, and he didn't make as much as he was hoping, and he wanted to give up several times. He announced he was giving up, and I said, you told your customers that you would be here until this time or until you sold out, and he knew one guy wanted to come, and so he just kept holding a sign out there. I mean, he's all of 9 years old, and he's trying to continue to keep his energy up in the hot sun to hold that sign. And when that neighbor popped out of his house to walk over, you should have seen the smile on his face. He was so relieved and happy that he was going to be done. I'm going to sell out right now.
I can punch out of work now.
Yeah, and I think that the kingdom of God is vested in teaching us to be unseen. God wants us to be able to calm down long enough to be unseen for a long time. Because you cannot develop faithfulness, which is a fruit of the Spirit, unless you can calm down being unseen.
And if you're always distracted by everybody seeing you, you will lose track that God is the one that always sees you.
That's absolutely true. There's always someone watching, but it's usually an unseen.
Your unseen friend.
Audience. Yeah.
And God, and when he gives applause, it's the most meaningful applause there is, and it's permanent.
That's right. And you and I are trying to live that now, from going from a platform ministry where we were well known and sought after and recognized on airplanes to not being known at all, not being asked at all. And living in that with not just acceptance, but thriving in it
Say it's not just okay, but it's good. It's good to be.
It's good to be unknown, yes. Is teaching our boys, our oldest is learning how to make excellent movies and get very few views on YouTube. Mm-hmm. And he's learning how, he even told me the other day, he's like, Mom, I'm not doing this to get out there. I'm doing this because I want an excellent product. And he's building up his portfolio, so should he be hired for freelance work or somebody who wants, gaming work done or coding or sculpting, he will have the skill to say, this is what I could do and here's my portfolio. But I was so proud of him not chasing the numbers and the statistics.
He's building up the endurance of sticking to that goal, which is, this is worth doing, and I'm good at it, and I committed to it, I'm going to see it through.
Yes. And we don't have a class called Spiritual Formation or Theology or Bible. We are talking about these things throughout all the time, every meal, this is just the way our family is doing life and culture together. And because we're with our boys so much, we have the margin to have these conversations. And that's why we home educate. Mm-hmm. We're not rushed in our relationship with them. What a blessing.
And we can tie together all the different things we've gone through, and even in their textbooks, and say, remember this in history? We learned this about that Roman guy? And remember this over here in Bible? We learned this about Gideon? You see how the themes are playing out in this situation we're in right now? Yeah, I see it. I see it, Dad. Like, perfect. I wouldn't even know that they were studying all those things or the details of those metaphors unless I was in it with them.
It's really a rich life, and I know it's not much longer. We have 5 years with our oldest and 10 with our youngest, and then it's over. That's very short.
We're going to milk it for all it's worth. Well, if you enjoyed this, please subscribe and give a positive review. And to engage us as artists, go to jonalynfincher.com to see Jonalyn's work and to hear the stories of the Bible. You can begin that journey by going to dalefincher.com. These will be in the show notes, and we'll see you next time on The Back Porch.